The unification of Italy, known in Italian as the Risorgimento, which means resurgence, refers to the almost 30 years during which the kingdom of Sardinia-Piedmont conquered all of the Italian peninsula and the island of Sicily. The unification was spurred on by the revolutions of 1848, a time of great instability throughout Europe, during which liberal ideas spread throughout Europe by Napoleon and the French Revolution led to demands for more rights and national unity. In 1799, Napoleon Bonaparte overthrew the French government with help from his brother and two other men. They wrote a new constitution for France in which they established a consulate in which Napoleon and the two men ruled France, though Napoleon had much greater power than his comrades. Napoleon was famous in France for his victories against the British and was largely revered, especially by his soldiers. Throughout the next 15 years, Napoleon conquered much of Western Europe, spreading the ideals of the Napoleon Revolution to places like Germany and Italy. These ideals were primarily those of liberty and constitutional monarchies and republics, though he also spread nationalistic ideals, the idea that Italians should all be united in one country. Napoleon lost in 1815 at the Battle of Waterloo, which led to the monarchy returning to France, and the Congress of Vienna was held. The Congress of Vienna was held between the victorious powers of the Napoleonic Wars to redraw the borders of Europe. In Italy, the borders mostly reverted to their pre-war borders, with the notable exception being Austria was given the provinces of Lombardy and Venetia. This meant Italy was mostly under Austria's control, as most of the rest of Italy were Austrian allies, with the main exception of Sardinia-Piedmont. Italy was quite unstable in the aftermath of the Congress of Vienna. Austria wanted to try and bring all of Italy under their control, much like they had done with Germany, while most of the people wanted liberal reform, with the major disagreements being on how much reform. In the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies, a kingdom in southern Italy and Sicily, two secret liberal organizations were established, one in Naples, calling for a new constitution, and one in Sicily, which called for independence for the island. In 1821, an anti-Austrian revolt began in Sardinia-Piedmont. Their king, Victor Emmanuel I, was also anti-Austrian, as he wanted Lombardy, but he hated the liberals more and refused to accept any of their demands, instead abdicating the throne. The throne passed to his brother, Charles Felix, who refused to accept the liberals' demands. In 1830, inspired by the July Revolution in France, which saw the country become a constitutional monarchy, more liberal revolts broke out throughout all of Italy. These revolts were put down by the Austrian army, which refused to see anything that might disrupt their hegemony over Italy. Many of these revolutionaries thus fled to France, including a man named Giuseppe Mazzini, an important Italian revolutionary who wanted to see Italy become a unified republic. While in France, Mazzini founded a secret organization known as Young Italy, which worked to spread propaganda pushing for a united Italian republic. In 1833, the organization had 60,000 members, one of whom was Giuseppe Garibaldi. That same year, a number of members in Young Italy were executed in Sardinia-Piedmont for planning a revolt. In the 1840s, Italy saw a rise in nationalism, though none of these nationalists could agree on anything. Some, like Mazzini, wanted to see Italy become a modern republic, while others, such as the Prime Minister of Sardinia-Piedmont, wanted to see Italy become a constitutional monarchy. In 1846, the Pope died and was replaced with Pius IX, who was somewhat sympathetic to the nationalist cause. Around the same time, the unrest in Italy began to spread, most importantly spreading to Austria, which weakened their grip on Italy, with nationalist revolts happening in Milan and Venice. In Sardinia-Piedmont, the revolutionaries were making some headway, with King Charles Albert issuing a constitution and declaring his support for the revolts in Milan and Venice. He raised an army and marched across the Austrian border to face the Austrians at the Battle of Custoza, which the Austrians won, leading to a white peace. Around that same time, Pius IX was forced out of Rome by Giuseppe Mazzini, who then declared the creation of the Roman Republic. The French soon took back the city, returning it to Pius IX. The nationalists fled the city, with Garibaldi taking refuge in the city of San Marino. Charles Albert invaded the Austrian Empire again, hoping to end the unrest he was experiencing home, but it went terribly and he soon abdicated. He was succeeded by Victor Emmanuel II, who was forced to pay the Austrians heavily in war reparations. In 1850, very little had changed in Italy, with the important differences being that the French had stationed troops in Rome to protect it from nationalists, Lombardy and Venetia had lost all their local autonomy, and Sardinia-Piedmont had changed their flag, which now included the Italian tricolour. Sardinia-Piedmont's Prime Minister, Count Camillo Benso de Cavour, was a moderate who was a supporter of free trade, something that greatly improved the prosperity of Sardinia-Piedmont. This newfound wealth allowed Sardinia-Piedmont to pursue an aggressive foreign policy. In 1853, the Russians invaded the Ottoman Empire in an attempt to seize Crimea, an incredibly important port in the Black Sea. France and the United Kingdom feared Russia becoming too strong and joined the Ottoman Empire to push back the Russians. Sardinia-Piedmont also joined the war, hoping to secure French and British support against the Austrians. The British refused to help the Italians, but France, under Louis Napoleon III, agreed on the condition that the Papal States remained unharmed and that the Piedmontese gave the French the city of Nice. In 1859, an uprising was held in the Tuscan city of Modena, which led Sardinia-Piedmont to invade. The Austrians intervened, so the French came to Sardinia-Piedmont's aid. Garibaldi was given a force of volunteer soldiers, whom he used to lead a guerrilla campaign through Austria. Italians in central Italy rose up against their countries, declaring themselves the United Provinces of Central Italy, joining the war against the Austrians. The most historically notable battle of this war was the Battle of Solferino, a combined Franco-Piedmontese victory. The battle involved over 250,000 men and was so bloody it led to the creation of the International Red Cross. The war lasted only 2.5 months, as the French feared the Prussians would join the war. They signed a peace without telling Sardinia-Piedmont, leading to Cavour resigning in a fit of rage. The peace still gave Sardinia-Piedmont Lombardy, who then ceded Savoy and Nice to the French. The United Provinces of Central Italy was also annexed by Sardinia-Piedmont at the behest of their government. The United Provinces of Central Italy included some papal land, which left the French angry with Sardinia-Piedmont for breaking their promises to not harm the Papal States. The Sicilians were still dissatisfied with the Neapolitan overlordship, and so some Sicilian men met with Garibaldi in Genoa to discuss an invasion of Sicily. Garibaldi, with support from Cavour, who was once again the Prime Minister, raised a volunteer army of 1,089 volunteers, who were then ferried to Sicily with orders to conquer the island but leave Naples. The volunteers were accompanied by the British Navy, as the British feared the Kingdom of Two Sicilies was getting too close to Russia. The men landed at Marsala in western Sicily. After only 3 months, the entire island had been conquered. On the 19th of August, Garibaldi, against his orders, crossed the Straits of Messina and began his conquest of Naples. After only a month, all of Naples was under his control, Gaeta, where the king of the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies was hiding. The king of Sardinia-Piedmont then invaded the Papal States, annexing all of it except for Rome and the city of San Marino. San Marino was allowed to stay independent, as it had been agreed when Garibaldi fled there that it would never join a united Italy. The Piedmontese army then helped Garibaldi conquer Gaeta. Garibaldi then, putting aside his hatred for monarchy, handed control of Naples over to Victor Emmanuel II. In 1860, a referendum was held in Naples for unification with Sardinia-Piedmont, with 99.85% of people voting yes. On March 17, 1861, the Kingdom of Italy was proclaimed, with Florence as its capital and Victor Emmanuel II as its king. 10 days later, the Italian Parliament declared Rome to be their capital, despite the Pope still having control of it. 3 months later, Cavour died. When he was read his last rites, he stated, "Italy is made, all is safe." The Italian government now had the very difficult task of unifying Italy culturally. Italy was still very divided, with many referring to themselves based off of their province, rather than their country, very similarly to the United States at the same time. Taxes were greatly raised throughout Italy, as Sardinia-Piedmont created a very large debt which it now had to repay. The Brigands' War also began, a 4-year-long period during which brigands roamed throughout southern Italy, robbing all they met. This led to many turning to revolutionaries such as Garibaldi, who led a few minor revolts, all of which failed. Garibaldi was never punished for these revolts, however, as he was basically a celebrity amongst the Italian people. In 1866, Prussia and Austria fought a war known as the Brothers' War. This was important to Italy, as they still liked Venetia. Italy came to an agreement with Prussia. In return for Italian help in their war, the Prussians would force the Austrians to cede Venetia. The Italians performed poorly throughout the war, but the Prussians still won the war, so they gave Venetia to France, who then gave it to Italy. In 1870, the French declared war on Prussia. They required a very large army to fight this war, so the French troops stationed in Rome had to be evacuated. The Italians seized this opportunity and laid siege to Rome. The Pope threatened to excommunicate whoever ordered an assault on Rome, so the Italians gave command of the army to a Jew, who then ordered the assault. Rome was taken and the Pope fled to the Vatican Hill. The unification of Italy was an important event in European history. The Italians would go on to influence many events throughout history, especially being important in both world wars.